So before getting into this video, a clear disclaimer that I will be covering spoiler content for DanMachi, the light novel series. Of course, I will be covering the latest volume that has come out in the West, and this stuff has not been covered in the anime as of yet, so a pre-warning that I will be covering heavy spoiler content. And again, if you do like this kind of content, remember to hit the like button, subscribe, tell me down in the comment section who your favorite character is in DanMachi, and of course a big thank you to my Patreon supporters and YouTube members for supporting my work. It helps tremendously, and it means the world to me that, of course, you are supporting my work. So getting into volume 17, one of the things that really stood out to me with this volume is the connection that Belle has with Eyes, and how that really starts to shine in this particular volume. But what also is kind of, to me, is kind of insane is not necessarily Freya's actions, but Freya's familiar members, because Freya has some deep feelings for Belle. Whether you agree with the feelings or not, and how those feelings go, if they're very misguided, is again up for interpretation. But she's very much bored with the general life that she has, so she's been pretending to be Sia, and so with Sia she's been getting very close to Belle and drawing a lot of feelings towards Belle. And I mean, being the hero he is, of course, he's going to have some girls kind of fall over, head over heels for him. And Freya was one of those. Sort of originally, Freya's whole thing was about the soul and how it shined differently. But I think over time, and this is something that's explored throughout the light novels and in this volume, is that her feelings have changed from just being more almost possessive and just wanting something very unique, and to being actual genuine feelings of affection. I think that's the difference, but again, it's very easy to interpret it differently. I've seen some people just interpret it as that she's just possessive, much like another particular god that also wanted to possess Belle. But I think for Freya, it started off possessive and then moved into genuine affection towards Belle. But how Freya has gone about it has very much been very crooked. And I've always enjoyed Freya as a character, and I still enjoy Freya as a character, because she adds a lot of fun layers to the story, and it stirs the pot up very much so, because Belle has been pretty much having a straightforward journey. It's always been kind of like defeat the next bad guy, though a couple of side things where, you know, it's more morally grey areas where a character does something. They're not necessarily bad, but they're just very misguided, and Belle generally saves them, and this is kind of a similar situation. But a lot of the stuff that Belle's been doing has been deeply embedded with the dungeon, so taking some time out of the dungeon has been kind of a bit of breath of fresh air, per se. But Freya's had enough. She's sick of it, and especially with the previous volume, where she was rejected, or her feelings were rejected, her pretending to be Sia, she's decided to take matters into her own hand and take Belle by force. The thing is that she brainwashes everyone in the city, or tries to brainwash everyone. Some people do escape from the brainwashing, but Belle can't be brainwashed because of his immunity, because of some skills that he has. So Freya can't do that. So the best she can do is lie to him and try and trick him into believing that his past life was all fake, and by brainwashing everyone in the guild, or not just the guild, but all the other guild familiar members, the guild itself, and the place, the city as a whole, it gives Belle this sense of, he feels lost. He's wandering around in his mind and seeing people, and they just treat him differently, and they all act as if he's always been part of the Freya familiar member. So you've also got to remember that Hestia does know as well. She knows the truth, but she's been told that if she steps out of line, things will get worse for her, so she's backed into a corner. Hermes has had his memories changed, but he has put some things in place to help when the time comes to remember his past stuff. And it's one of the things that actually is kind of interesting as well, because a certain individual, a certain grandfather of Belle, is still sending letters to Hermes asking how Belle has been doing. But Hermes hasn't been replying to those now because he's forgotten about the whole connection and everything going on. So Hermes kind of keeps going around in a circle. It's kind of like that Groundhog Day kind of thing, where he keeps seeing things, he keeps noticing things, and he's like, wait, why don't I remember this? Why don't I remember that? This doesn't add up. This seems confusing. And then as soon as he starts to get closer and closer and closer to working out what it is, the spell kicks in and then just resets and kind of wipes his memory again. and it keeps sort of rinse repeating. So it's like that groundhog. He's getting closer and then it flips back. Gets closer again, flips back. So he's in this kind of perpetual cycle. But Hestia has kind of, she knows what she needs to do, and things have been put into place to relinquish the city from its spell under Freya. But this is another thing as well, is that because Freya has done what she's done to the city, things are almost chaotic, because normally everything's very much about getting further into the dungeon, keeping things under wraps and managing everything. But because of what Freya's done, it's kind of thrown everything in an imbalance. And though Freya is keeping the guild at bay, keeping them happy, particularly one individual that oversees it, and he can't be, or he hasn't been put under the spell, it's thrown things kind of in a bit of a haywire. So everything's very unstable because of what Freya has done. Bel is also unstable because he has these past memories, but he keeps getting told that they're fake. And then as he's doing training, they're kind of beating him up really heavily. And there's a multitude of reasons. One, it's because Freya's telling them to really rail in on him, to keep him busy and occupied and wear him down slowly so that he's easier to finally control, and so that she can use her spell on him. That's the intent and the hope. But at the same time, some of the Freya familiar members just don't like him because of the fact that Freya is so in love with him and enamored, so they kind of take their anger and frustration out of him. And because of how almost psycho some of the Freya familiar members are, because they're so possessive about making Freya happy, or being there for Freya, or being close to her, and they're so I wouldn't even say possessive, but just, you could use the word simp, but I feel like it's not even that. It's almost dangerous, not just for their own physical health, but for others around them, in how they become almost psychotic. And this kind of goes on to Bel, where they kind of really end up hurting him to the point where it could be almost irreversible, the healing process. And so Bel really gets pushed like to the brink of death multiple times, which I think is going to help him level up even further because of that. But what really clicks over is that even though Bel's slowly starting to give up, the one moment that finally gives him the confidence to realize that it's all fake is when he bumps into Ayaz. And Ayaz says the following, that she wants to knock him out and for him to rest his head on her lap. That is when Bel realizes that the memories that he has are real and that something's going on. And on top of that, Hestia is getting Hermes to kind of realize what's going on with the special little letter that he's got. You've also got two other individuals that escaped the city that are coming back to try and save Bel. Things don't go particularly well. One being the particular elf herself that is deeply in love with Bel as well, and she gets offered by Freya to, hey, you could join me, we could share Bel together, but she doesn't agree to it. This all just comes crashing down, and Hestia does use her blood mixed in with the wood, and when the wood gets burnt, it then allows Hestia to create a purification to then wipe the spell off, because of course she is pure because she hasn't done the deed. And that then creates a massive rippling effect, because as I've mentioned in my previous video, imagine how some people feel when they find out that they've been put under a spell by Freya. And Freya almost got to the point where she was about to put some other people under a spell, because there were some people in the dungeon that hadn't been put under spell, and one of those is a royalty of an elf. And as some people pointed out in the book, is that if that ended up happening, that would have caused some major controversy, because touching royalty of an elf is a bad move. But that didn't end up happening because everything got reversed just in time. But the city is not happy. People are furious that Freya did what she did, which is leading into the end where there is going to be a faction war. And I've talked about this in the previous video about the faction war and how some of these things can turn out, because Bel realizes, he fights back, Hestia fights back, the city itself, the guild itself, they all fight back, and they're all furious. So they're basically marching at her front door, demanding answers, demanding retribution, punishment, etc. And I don't think Freya is going to be sent back to the high heavens, or the heavens in general. I think she will be severely punished, and she will have her familiar members have to fulfill certain requirements. But now you've got the Great Faction War. This is going to be her familiar members versus other familiar members. And I think it isn't just going to be only her familiar members versus a group of familiar members. I think some people will choose to side with Freya, and I don't think Freya will need to brainwash or use her charm to get anyone. Even though her familiar members are super strong on their own, I think there will be some people that will still sympathize with her, that will join her side just because they want to be on the winning side, and they think that will be the winning side, and they think they could get some favor with Freya. But at the end of the day, I think this is where you're going to see some people really step up, and I think one major member is going to be our particular lovely elf herself, where she is going to, I think, and this is just a theory, join Hestia's familiar members. She'll find a way to end up leaving her past familiar member group and then end up joining Hestia as a kind of a feeling like she needs to join, and then having her status update and all that kind of stuff, because she hasn't had a status update like in ages. So I think there's some potential to really bring her power up one step further, and with Belle as well, there's going to be some major training stuff, I feel like. So volume 18 to me is going to be really awesome when it comes to the faction war. How that turns out, I think there are many different ways that it will turn out, but I think it will be awesome nonetheless. So I'd love to know your thoughts in the comment section down below. What do you think of volume 17? It's by far one of my favorite volumes so far, because again, as much as I love Freya, I love her character because of the layers that she adds to the story, the pot that she stirs, and how she keeps things interesting. And what ends up happening at the end of it, and the punishment that she will receive, I think will be interesting, and I think it could go in many different ways. So again, if you like this video, hit the like button, subscribe for more anime content, and I'll see you beautiful nerds in the next video.